Welcome, everyone, to A Call for Judgment. I wanted to cover this story, and for those of you that aren't familiar, the more that I keep covering how Satan is being turned into the victim, not just being promoted as the protagonist, which over the years I have covered. I've been covering the Satanic Temple, etc. recently, at least the narrative recently, about how they're victimizing the wicked in this world and how they're turning Christians and persecuting Christians and turning them into the evil, right? And the Bible talks about this in Isaiah chapter 5, verse 20. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. And a lot of these stories out there we're going to continue to see are going to be about the promoting and the victimization of the devil and the devil's worshipers, in other words, the Satanic Temple. So recently I uploaded here on this channel a video about the Satanic Temple and about how there's a rise now in schools wanting after-school Satan clubs because, of course, the mainstream media continues to promote it. They continue to make them look like really good people as victims. They show their SatanCon event, which has Christians outside protesting, acting crazy, making them at least look like they're acting crazy and looking like they're jerks and they're bullies, which is exactly the narrative they want. And of course, before I could even put that video live, I literally uploaded it, had it unlisted. For those of you that don't know, when you upload a video, you can go live with it immediately. You can go live with it the next day, right? It can sit there for a little while. Obviously, most content creators put it on a timer or put it, unlisted until they're ready to upload it. And I got a strike without it ever even being live, which means that somebody somehow was watching it, and I lost the appeal, of course, and said that I was inciting violence and bullying against Satan. All I was doing was exposing the narrative. And that video, again, is available on my website, but they wouldn't let me upload it here. And these are the types of stories you're going to continue to hear. Get a load of this. Sculpture Park, which is a very famous sculpture park. It's a roadside attraction in America. In South Dakota, people frequent it pretty often. You pull over, if you've been on a road trip, you walk around for a little while, you look at all these sculptures, and of course all the sculptures are satanic. And of course it's been vandalized, right? Because now all of a sudden we're hearing about stories of Christians vandalizing. They don't really make it mainstream all the times that churches get vandalized. I guess because it's so commonplace when people write 666 on the door of a church. We saw a lot of it with the Roe v. Wade.
Check out how we made this real.
6 on the door of a church. We saw a lot of it with the Roe v. Wade, obviously psyop that they've created. But get a load of this sculpture park being ravaged by vandals who are fighting Satan.
A $1,000 reward is being offered for the return of stolen sculptures in Montrose. Yesterday morning, Wayne Porter arrived to find the Porter Sculpture Park had been vandalized. There was graffiti and sculptures broken. The vandals cutting off the heads of 4 pieces and stealing them. Porter is now offering the $1,000 reward for the return of the missing sculpture pieces.
So obviously the narrative here, again, is that, look at this, all of a sudden, this is the first time, I think, that we've ever seen something like this, right? Where suddenly, we've heard mentions, again, of Satanists vandalizing churches and things like that. They don't make a big deal about it, but now we're starting to see stories like this, right? We're seeing Christians who are protesting now being looked at as bullies. We're seeing Christians who protest outside of Planned Parenthood being bullies, getting arrested for harassment. Now we're seeing Christians vandalizing this satanic park of monuments, because most art, not all art, of course, people are very good artists, very talented artists, but most of this promoted art like this, you could just see that it's obviously filled with Satanism, right? You have skeletons with the goat head on it, holding swords or holding whatever the heck they're holding. You see druids walking, or druid sculptures all over the place, right? You see Baal statues. It's pretty obvious what it is, right? But then suddenly Christians, and these are psyops. These are done by the government, just like what I talked about with the after-school Satan, how a father called into the school. I can't even say it here on YouTube, because apparently that's inciting violence, so I won't say anything. But Christians are now apparently going and writing Jesus is King, writing Jesus all over the satanic sculpture. So who looks like the bad person here? Who looks like the bully here? Who looks like oh my goodness, they're pushing this on to everybody. And the poor Satanists out there, they're not bothering anyone. They're not doing anything. So now we're seeing the name of Christ written on satanic sculptures. See how everything is getting inverted and flipped? And remember, we're living in an inverted society. Like the Bible says, like I read earlier, about good being evil and evil being good. So a well-known sculpture park in South Dakota was vandalized just before the season opening, apparently by intruders who mistakenly believed that the art was satanic. And again, mistakenly believe, I mean, you have Baphomet goat heads, horns on top of this sculpture. You have the giant statue of Baal. I mean, people out there, they'll be like, that's just a bull. I mean, it is Baal. It's Baal worship, right? And you have the druid cloaks walking, not walking, I keep saying walking, lined up in order around the park. I mean, if you look at a lot of the sculptures in there, you have monarch butterflies, you have all sorts of stuff. And again, people say that it's art, and this is how they get away with promoting it, all-seeing eyes and all these types of satanic symbols that we see all the time. They just say that it's in the name of art. So they say the base of a bull sculpture, and again, it's Baal, was graffitied with the words, Jesus is king and Satan is defeated. And goat-faced guardian skeletons, again, I mean, so you see all the stuff here. Oh, that's not satanic. You have a Baal and you have goat-faced guardians. So goat-faced guardian skeletons placed around it were beheaded. The owners of Porter's Sculpture Park say it could take more than a year to repair that damage and other vandalism. They are reporting that when the family posted about the wreckage on social media, they received some comments to the effect of, the vandalism was justified in the name of God. So you see how things are being worded, right? How people are suddenly turning on God. Oh, the vandalism was done in the name to justify God. Oh, so what they're trying to say here is that God is wicked, God is bad. People who follow God are out of control, they're reckless. When in reality, obviously, we know the opposite is what's happening. The destruction of our country, other countries, the perverse rising up. We've never seen, this is literally as in the days of Noah. It's like we're living in Sodom and Gomorrah, what we're seeing right now. I mean, it's just unbelievably sickening, and I can't even really go into detail about what is sickening, but we all know what's sickening and what we're seeing going on in our schools and what they're promoting and what they're trying to shove down everyone's throats. And again, what they're turning everyone into through subliminal programming and television shows and the characters that they purposely place there and the shows that promote and glorify all this stuff. So this is all mind control, obviously. Telling people they're born a certain way. This is all obviously psychological damage and a psychological operation. This is how the CIA works. This is the whole purpose of the CIA. So now what they're doing, now what the CIA and the mainstream media and even the non-mainstream media are doing is they're continually promoting Christians as a handful of things. Bigots, hateful, living in the Stone Age, not accepting or not tolerant, right? Again, because they want everyone to have that do-without-will mindset. And unfortunately, a lot of Christians do get pressured into accepting and tolerating a lot of this stuff. And then a lot of Christians read articles like this, and they're like, this is just horrible. Well, monuments and things like this in what once was a Christian nation shouldn't be allowed, right? Especially based on the fact that we see how Christians are being persecuted against, being silenced. People like me, people like you, right? Talking about what's going on, showing this stuff, even talking about some of these satanic events that are going on, getting shut down and silenced for bullying, for calling it out for what it truly is, right? But this stuff is okay, and then this will be the narrative you'll continue to hear. This is part of the subliminal persecution. This is part of the subliminal way of inverting and flipping everything. Because young people or people who are atheists or people who are borderline lukewarm Christians, they see stuff like this and it leads them away from God because they start saying, oh man, Christians really are hateful. They really are mean. They're vandalizing now. What's next? What are the next stories we're going to hear? Well, you're going to hear stories of horrible crimes being committed by Christians, right? In the name of God, they'll say. That'll be the narrative that gets attached. Oh, he heard a voice. God told him to do it. That's why I covered that Lori Daybell trial. Because they made such a big, it's a big deal in the sense of, what happened or supposedly happened to the family. And it's disgusting. It's despicable. But the mainstream, these types of stories happen all the time. The mainstream media love promoting it because they called it the doomsday cult. Oh, these religious people who are, they believe in the end times. They believe that God is returning soon, that they're chosen, and that they go and do this to their own family. That is what they're doing. So even if a story naturally occurs like that, when there's people who are clearly not Christian, who are completely lunatics, obviously, right, are doing those types of things, they want to promote that because they want people to see that and say, whoa, Christians are crazy. Whoa, you know what? If this is what Christians think about the end times, I don't want to read anything about end times prophecy, even though the majority of the Bible, not just the book of Revelation, talks about and warns of the end time and what we'll see, right, as in the days of Noah and all the craziness, right, the visions that a lot of the prophets had. But they want people to constantly see these types of things. So the stories are all flipped. Back in the past, 20 years ago, you would have heard stories about, oh, there was this type of parade going on and Christians were protesting it. And people would have sided with the Christians and said, oh, yeah, you know what? We don't want that here. We don't want that in our town. Now it's the other way around, right? But when Christians are having an event and these people go and protest it and they act crazy and dump milk on their heads outside and do all the stuff I've covered over the years, it gets promoted and glorified as, hey, they're standing up for equality. They're standing up for women's rights, right? That's what we hear. Everything has flipped the other way. So now stories like this, which are clearly, I mean, these are just clearly things, you know, most of these stories are obviously done and created by the CIA, but in the event something actually does happen, in the event something like this, the vandalism is actually real, which I doubt that it is, because I doubt Christians would actually go and say, hey, you know, let's spray paint all over their stuff and write Jesus is king and stuff. Maybe Christians actually did do that. Maybe they did. But the media loves it because they could blast that out there. They could say, oh my goodness, did you know about this sculpture park? And people are like, oh yeah, I think I heard of Sculpture Park, even though most people haven't heard of Sculpture Park. I've only heard of most of these things because I've driven cross country before. And so people will be like, oh, and then they start showing pictures and like, oh wow, that's really neat. Oh, that's really cool. Even though they're staring at, you know, Baal, they're staring at goats, they're staring at cloaked druids. They don't even know what they're looking at because they're completely just brainwashed into thinking that it's art. And then they're like, oh man, and Christians went and ruined that? Man, do you just feel it? Like if you're a Christian and you listen to this, don't you just feel like the foot on our heads right now? Mm-hmm. Which I know, you know, this is biblical, right? We read about this in the Bible, Matthew chapter 5, verse 10. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Persecution is going to be all over us, but I feel it personally, and not just from my channel and stuff. You could just feel like the energy around us of like, Christians are wicked. Christians are, and a lot of Christians that, you know, I know and stuff, I can feel them being muted, and I can feel them feeling like that kind of pressure, and instead of fighting against it, they cave into it. You know, they don't want to speak out against it because they're afraid of getting confrontation or dealing with confrontation or being confronted by it. And they shouldn't be. They should be saying, look, you're the one who's under mind control. You're the one who's being brainwashed. Look at the stuff we're accepting. Why are we accepting it? Well, because of repetition and because of desensitizing people. 20 years ago, nobody would have accepted it. What do you think? We've evolved over 20 years? No. Psychologically, they've just pounded this into people's heads that it's okay, that it's good, that they're born a certain way. Over. Just like in the school system. Brainwash. And now, everyone's desensitized to it. Just like they will be desensitized to satanic rituals out in public. That's next. Which I've said for years. And cannibalism, people are like, that's never happening. Just like I said, the adulting of kids and all this other crap. Because that's how mind control works. So soon they'll be like, oh yeah, we're going to have, you know, the Satanists are going to have a big ritual at the park. People are going to be like, oh, okay. So they'll have a ritual, a couple years, it'll go by, they'll do it every year. People are like, oh, it's not a big deal, nothing happens. Then they'll suddenly be like, oh, they're going to sacrifice this animal. They'll be like, well, the animal's sick anyway, so we might as well do it. People are like, oh, well, the animal's sick, okay. You know, 5 years will go by, oh, we're just going to sacrifice 10 animals. Oh, okay, well, they've done it already. It's not a big deal. Oh, then we're going to sacrifice kids. Oh, okay. You know, it's going to go on and on and on. And evolve. Oh, they're in the schools, right? That's a video I have on the website, which they wouldn't let me put up here. They're in the schools. They're like, we're not doing anything about, we don't believe in the devil, blah, 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 blah. Right, they go on and on. I was reading the article. It's a pretty funny video, actually. Pretty good rant. For those that missed it, I apologize, but you thank YouTube. They're just going on and on about how, you know, they don't really worship the devil, and they're promoting stuff, and, you know, they're just having a good time and talking about stuff. And then it goes on to say, well, we have a children's book promoting our 7 tenets. Of course, their 7 tenets have to do with science. It's all brainwashing crap, right? It's like a cute way to get around of saying what they really are. And so, you know, you read it, you know, like those sentences you read, and you're just like, what does that even mean? That's what their tenets are. But then when you break it down, you realize what they're saying when you look at what's going on in society with all this stuff. Oh, accept it, tolerate it, do what thou wilt, and always believe in science. And what science is whatever the government tells us it is. Oh, but don't believe in that most basic science, what a man is and a woman is, right? It's insane stuff. So this is what we're living in, desensitizing people, right? brainwashing people, and sooner or later, which is coming very soon, the persecution of Christians is going to continue to get worse, but sooner or later, you're talking imprisonment, you're talking about not being able to go out in public and praise Jesus Christ. That's what's coming. That'll be considered hate speech. Watch. Because look at the stuff that's considered hate. The fact that we even have hate speech and we discuss it, and even hate crime, but hate speech. Like, remember the saying growing up? Sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me? You haven't heard that in a long time, right? Well, I grew up on stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And my mindset was always, I don't give a crap what anyone says. Say what you want, and I'll say what I want back. And I always knew whatever someone said wouldn't hurt my feelings, and whatever I said, I would dissect them and break them down into nothing, into rubble. Because I was good with words. And that was the way it is. If you want to attack me, I'll attack you back like that. Now it's like, they can say what they want. Like the video I'm putting up soon on the website about Charlize Theron. They can say that they'll kill you if you don't accept and believe what they believe. But if you say, hey, I disagree with that, if I disagree with that, that's hate speech, and you will be terminated, and soon you'll be in prison. And some countries are even doing that now. So that's where we're headed. And these types of stories about Christians vandalizing, this is what they want to continue to do. It's a slow build, but now it's no longer a slow build because it's been happening for the last decade. It's like the rock rolling down the hill, right? It just keeps picking up dirt, getting bigger, bigger, bigger. And that's what's going on. More and more stories you're hearing about this stuff, right? The whole SatanCon thing. 20 years ago, the narrative would have been, whoa, why are these people that get them out? They claim they don't believe that. Nobody's believing it. They're liars. Get them out. Throw them out. Don't let them do this stuff, etc., etc. Now the narrative, they're having a peaceful SatanCon event. Look at these horrible Christians outside. They have signs that say Satan's horrible, right? But they don't really believe in Satan. I mean, the whole thing is just insanity. So that video is available on the website for those who aren't familiar. I can't post the name of the website or anything like that, but I'm sure others will tell you what it is, or you can find it on your own. I'm sure most of you are already familiar with it. But this type of stuff will continue to happen. I thank everyone for being here. I hope you're doing very well.
What was his first name? His original name.
God bless all of you and your family.